What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Teed Up. I'm your host, Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. Today's episode is a day a lot of y'all been waiting on. I got a special guest with me, a guy who I've been a fan of for years now in this industry or whatever you want to call it, this draft world. My guy, Jacob Myers, a.k.a. League Him, one of the best in the business. Jacob, first and foremost, appreciate you taking time with us. This is going to be probably one of the best episodes we've done here. A lot of people anxious to hear about any draft intel, opinions, or information that they can. And it's not many more in the business that are better than you. How you feeling, bro?
Man, I'm excited. I appreciate the kind words. The respect is mutual. Big fan from afar and sometimes close. But yeah, this should be great, man.
The first thing I'm going to ask you is what's been the most interesting thing for you in this draft cycle compared to the previous ones, especially last year? Last year was a weird year. I know a lot of people in the media kind of talk down on last year's draft, but I think one of the things people don't kind of think about is a draft like last year that's so open kind of means, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it means more work for you, right? On what's happening, different guys rising and falling and whatnot. But what are the things that have stood out so far up to this point with this year's class?
Comparing to last year, I would say, there was always a little bit of debate on who the top guy was going to be in 2024, whether it was Sarr, Ricochet, Castle. There are a lot of guys that were throwing for that top spot. Whereas this year, you kind of always knew it was going to be Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Dillon was kind of always in the mix at 2. Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Tre Johnson. Those guys were the tiers were kind of established pretty early. I would say the main difference is because of players being able to go back to school and make so much money and be in such a great situation. It's a little bit different where the second round, Jalen Wells goes 37. Like Jalen Wells, if that was this year, he might end up back at school.
Yeah.
Just because of how things are so different now and the decisions are made so quickly, whether to return or withdraw. There's some really good players that didn't even test the process. Look at Tommy Hawk from Florida. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
personally, I would have put a first round grade on him. He didn't even test the process. He just immediately went back. And then I would say the strong suit of this class, which makes it really exciting for me, and I think you and some of the draft, junkies, is like the mid first round is really strong. So I think there's not a lot of separation between like the late lottery to like 18, 19, 20, even like 21, 22. So I think we're going to be in a good situation where some guys are really going to pop, depending upon their team situation. And I'm really excited to see how everything falls through.
How do you feel about the players like not testing the waters or going back? Do you think it's smart? I've seen some people that say, when the NBA is calling, my dad is one of those guys. My dad is like, I can't believe all of these guys are going back. The goal was always to get to the NBA, and you don't want to pass up the opportunity that you have right there because you never know if it's going to always be there. Are you on that side of it? Do you like players going back, working on their game to, perfect their craft and maybe solidify themselves even higher in the following year's class?
Yeah, I think it's always situational, right? But I do think it's a good kind of development for players who want to kind of have that long term success. And more specifically to like the guys not even testing, I actually think it's a competitive advantage
Mm,
because when you test the draft waters, let's say, season ends in March, you sign with a big agency, you go to LA or Miami or whatever, you're doing training, then maybe you're going to the combine or elite camp, you're doing team workouts. Like that's a big toll on your body. Whereas some of the guys, like I just discussed, Tommy, like he can stay on campus, stay up to date with his academics, work out with his team,
absolutely.
get in the weight room. Like, man, the weight room, like off-season gains, whether it's, retooling your lower body or putting on some strength or just gaining some confidence, like that off-season work, having a consistent routine is a big competitive advantage. Whereas a lot of people are kind of going all over, they're transferring, they're visiting different schools, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's like maybe not talked about enough. I think that kind of helps the guys make the jumps. But yeah, I think overall, I think we're going to see a little bit more polished players hit the NBA, which is great for kind of everybody. It's great for college basketball. It's great for the NBA. I mean, one of the best stories right now in the NBA playoffs is Andrew Nembhard for the Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's like a 5-star kid coming out of Canada, supposed to be a one and done, kind of an underwhelming year at Florida, goes back again, doesn't have a great year, transfers to Gonzaga, reinvents himself, right? Was always this kind of on ball, pick and roll, maestro, setting the table, and just became like bulletproof from a skill set standpoint and from a mental standpoint. So he's so adaptable, right? And I watch him, he's as comfortable, mixing somebody off the dribble as he is attacking off the catch or initiating off the pick and roll. And he guards, man. And you can tell he's just really tough. So I think it really helps the guards because I think the guards are going to end up staying in school longer. And, the top end guards that are one and dones and, they get invested into by the organization and they get to run the show from day one. Like those guys usually do pretty well. Then the guys that come in really bulletproof and strong and resilient, they usually carve out a path. The ones in between, usually, sometimes get spit out because they don't really have the politics on their side. They might not be ready, so they still kind of need some reps. And, if those guys can return to school and just develop, be financially secure, I mean, that's a win-win.
Yeah, hey man, a lot of prospects in the past when we were growing up, I felt like it was the opposite, where you went for the financial standpoint, even if you felt like you could be a second round. Like we've seen a lot of people probably 10 plus years ago, or even less than that, really like leave early. I don't know if do you remember a guy by the name? I was talking to my producer Christian. Is it Grant Jarrett from he went to Arizona. I think he went to Findlay Prep High School, and I remember him being like a top high school player, but he had a very underwhelming freshman year, and he still went because it's just like the NBA is there, and I think he ended up being like a second round pick to the Thunder or not. So to me, it's a crazy transition from going there, where you see a lot of guys who may have had we've seen like a Peyton Watson who didn't have like a crazy statistical freshman year at UCLA, and he still ended up going into the draft, ended up being like a first round pick and everything. And to now see it being different, it's still kind of new to me. Christian said Trayvon Duval. That's another name that was like very interesting to see him leave Duke after that first year. So to now be in this position is definitely interesting. I like it. I'm on the side with you. I think the more polished that we can get the players, the better success rate we'll have with some of these guys. I think there's just too much talent in the basketball world to kind of force these guys to go into the highest level of, basketball, which is the NBA. And a lot of guys, like you said, they kind of get chewed up and spit out, and they barely have a lifespan in the NBA. Before we dive deeper, and this is my bad, I probably should have started with this, but I'm so excited to talk the draft with you. Give the audience and my viewers who aren't necessarily as familiar with who League him Jacob Myers, who you are, allow them to kind of get some insight into you so they can understand why I speak of you so highly, and why we on here getting all of this insight from you and feeling like this is the place to be. Who is Jacob Myers? How did you get into this business? And anything else that you think is interesting about you to help the viewer understand who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been tied in now for like 5 years. You kind of saw
Mm-hmm.
the whole path. So this is a cool moment. But yeah, so I started League Him during the pandemic, and I'm watching everyone's on social media, and the same players get all the attention, and sometimes they're not even good. And I would just get frustrated, right? Like I'm scrolling like everyone else, and I'm like, man, I'm sick of seeing this dude, or he's not really like that, or that type of thing. And I was just frustrated. I felt like the game was not covered through the lens of, production or skill sets. It was really about like marketability. And I feel like, especially in the high school game, the media companies are super opportunistic with the same players, and they build them up, and then sometimes it really hurts them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got access to the Synergy account when I was trying to be a manager at the University of Maryland, and I wasn't able to be with the team because of the pandemic. So I'm on Synergy like 12 hours a day, just eating, sleeping basketball. And I just kind of intuitively started like posting cut ups on Instagram of players who I thought were a little underrated. And very quickly it picked up traction. I was like, all right, this is cool. Just did like 1 or 2 a day. Players start following me, agents start following me. I think like the 10th day, like Chris Brickley like shared one of the posts or something like that. And I had like 1,000 followers in 10 days. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I just got really addicted to like just the little progress and like compounding. And so it just slowly grew and grew. I ended up being a manager at the University of Maryland. Mark Turgeon, worked my way up on the staff with Kevin Willard. And kind of on the side, I would just kind of cover sleepers and try and really nail on like who are the players that people aren't showing enough, like who's underrated, who's underappreciated, who's potentially undervalued from an NBA lens. And man, 5 years in now, been able to build a really cool community of, NBA front office, scouts, personnel, coaches, players, agents, people like you, where now I'm just building it out fully. So this is kind of like the first year I've covered the draft in entirety, not just kind of focusing in on those lesser known guys. So it's been really fun. I still have a sweet spot for the sleepers.
Absolutely.
I still like the sleepers. I still enjoy the late bloomers. I still enjoy, talking to the players with those like really cool journeys. I think that's something that we have in common. I think that's why, we became good friends. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. It's been really cool. People, I'm sure you get a lot of questions like, man, Pierre, how do I get into the media game? How do I want to talk basketball on ESPN. I want to, you know what I mean? And I mean, the answer is always really simple. It's like, you just got to kind of follow your intuition and don't look up. So like start working and keep your head down, do things the right way. And just like every once in a while, look up, check where you're at and like reevaluate, your plan, your roadmap, make sure you got the right people with you. But man, like nowadays, everything's so accessible. You just kind of have to build, do things the right way, and ends up working out. But that's where I'm at now.
How much of that you just said for yourself, keeping your head down, good team around you, reassessing, how much of that do you see in these prospects when you get a chance to speak with them, sit down with them when you're going to these workouts, when you're getting intel? How much of that are you picking up from guys? And does that type of information change the way that you scout? So if you come to a Pierre workout and I'm as talented as ever and I can do some really gifted things, but the other stuff isn't right, do you now go back to your big board or do you go to your mock draft or whatever and reposition a player, or do you just evaluate the skill only and leave it to where it is?
Man, I'm glad you asked this. Character is everything. The intel, how people treat other people, what kind of teammate you are, what kind of worker you are, how tough you are, resiliency. I mean, it's honestly more important than the skill set, right? Like the skill set gets you in the door, but I mean, man, it's everything. Like everyone can tell that Dylan Harper is like super dynamic downhill, can finish with both hands, strong, creative, tough, instinctual. But like, who is he as a person, right?
Yeah,
Or, we talked Jalen Wells, like goes 37th, ends up top 5 rookie in his class to start. That's a late bloomer, dude. Like that's a
for real.
tough, like driven, chip on his shoulder kind of guy who's has a growth trajectory. And we'll get into some players this year who I think maybe fit that mold. But yeah, it's really important. There's a reason why NBA teams are investing millions and millions of dollars to learn every single little bit of information and every data point on these players' journeys, because not only the investment from a financial standpoint, but like, dude, there's only so many minutes in the
Yeah,
season that you're actually on the court, right? Like
literally.
you're building organizations, you're building teams, you're traveling, you're at practice, you're in the locker room. Like no one wants to be with, an asshole, right? Like you got to be a good dude. And then from
Yeah.
an upside standpoint, I mean, when I'm looking for guys, I'm building out my board. Like I want guys that maybe have upside, but I want like reachable upside, right? You want to
Hmm.
see some sort of proof that guys are improving. They love basketball. I think growth mindset is like the simplest way to put it is like guys that are chasing growth, and then, having character, having toughness. I think that shows in the players that are good in the NBA. I mean, arguably the best player in the NBA right now, outside Jokic, SGA.
Hmm.
And you can tell, man, like the way he approaches life, the way he approaches basketball is special. Like and it goes from the star players to the role players like a Aaron Wiggins.
Shout out to Maryland, baby.
Yeah, or a J-Dub, who's a late bloomer at Santa
Mm-hmm.
Clara. We talk about guys that didn't test the process and develop, like stays there 3 years, each year makes a jump. Like, yeah, I think it's everything. I'm really happy you brought that up because I think sometimes it's not talked about enough in the media about, especially the younger players when they're trying to get there. Like they should know, like, hey man, like how you treat people, how you carry yourself, how you know, your attitude. It's as important as your skill set.
When you talk about some of the guys in that class, or the ones that are in here, let's get to it. This is the 2025 NBA draft. We're right around the corner. This is coming out on Monday. So we're about 2 days away from the draft. Who are some of those guys for you in this class? You and me share the same type of mentality when we talk about prospects and everything. I tell people all the time, for the most part, there is 100+ prospects. I like all of the guys, if I'm just being honest. Like, I think in order to reach this level, you have to have some type of talent or skill. So when you look at a lot of guys, there are things that I identify with a lot of these guys where I could say, that could translate to the NBA. I do have enough common sense to know that everybody isn't going to pan out, but a lot of that isn't up to me. And sometimes it ain't even up to the player. A lot of it is about where you go, the opportunity, some of the politics that may end up having to be a little bit more for others, maybe in the later parts of the draft. But before we get into all of that, who are some of those guys that line up to the things you just talked about and check some of the box? You already talked about Dylan Harper. Who are maybe some of those other guys scattered around the draft? You know what I mean? Lottery, mid, first round, late first round, second round guys who really stand out as far as character and mindset.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you don't get to this level without carrying yourself a certain way. But when I think of like maybe more specific to the kind of guys we've been talking about, every year we do our watch list, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we highlight preseason more of the sleeper types, guys that are kind of developing in the shadows, guys that maybe they didn't play on a big AAU program, they didn't play at Peach Jam, or they weren't at a Montvert, or maybe they're not at a big time school. And this year, we had Cedric Coward,
Mm-hmm.
Rasheer Fleming, who I know is your guy.
Yep.
Nique Clifford, who's kind of on the radar. He went to the combine last year. Yaxel Lenenberg, who ends up
Yes.
returning. Jameer Watkins, a couple others. But I think those first three are a great three starting points. So, your guy Rasheer Fleming.
That's my guy because of the watch list. I'm just putting that out there. This is why you have to follow Jacob and league him, because you'll get put on early to be able to say that's my guy.
Yeah, I wasn't trying. I'm not a big receipt guy. I was just kind of, for the frame of the conversation, I think it's a good touch point. But yeah, so like Rasheer Fleming, man, he plays on a high school team with Aaron Bradshaw and DJ Wagner. We talk about the epitome of, high school basketball marketing. Like those are big time names.
Mm-hmm.
And, Rasheer is like this long, gangly, undeveloped 7'5" wingspan. He got recruited at the layup lines. He told me. I talked to the staff at St. Joe's. They're like, man, we saw Rasheer in the layup lines. We had to have him. But yeah, so just goes there as a freshman, plays a little bit. You can kind of see the tools. Sophomore year, jumps, and then this year, man, shoots nearly 40% from three. He's all over the place. Big time dunks, blocks, steals. Was the best player on the floor against Texas Tech in November, who went to the Final Four. And you talk to him, and he's like really humble dude, right? Like he used to not have attention. I talked about him with him about being overlooked is kind of a superpower because he was able to develop without having to worry about people looking at him and stuff. And he'll be probably a top 24 pick, maybe a little bit higher in the draft. Another guy, Cedric Coward, he's kind of been like the man of mystery in this draft. He plays 6 games. No one talks about him from December to March, or December to honestly like May. Goes to the combine, still can't play. So he's recovering from a shoulder injury. We did our film session with him the week prior, and he's like moving up and down his chair. He's like, man, I would love to play in the scrimmages. Like he wanted to play in the scrimmages so bad, wasn't cleared. And he measures incredibly well, shoots it in drills incredibly well, and you just get this huge buzz.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe that what's not talked about enough with the buzz with him, it's really not about the skill set. It's about the teams that are sitting down with them and talking to him. And they're like, oh my God, Like this guy is so polished, so self-aware, and the character there is I call it like basketball character, just kind of all together, is really high level. He's probably the most impressive player I've ever talked to. And
Wow.
I don't say that lightly because I don't really like to gas up these players, and you don't want to like take it too far. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm. The Cedric, hey, I saw some pieces of when y'all talked, and you went over the film. Talk about self aware. Like I'm not sure because I don't sit down and talk to the players as much as you do, especially at the college level. A lot of times when I do have the chance to speak with them, it's at the combine, almost at the NBA draft. But like self-aware is probably like the word that stand out in bold when I watched a lot of that. You broke down a lot of film. He was like very remembering of each and every play, things that he should have done, could have done, and will do better at the next level. And I thought that that was something that stood out a lot to me. It's just how dialed in he was into himself and ways to be better. And I think it speaks to his roadmap and how he's been able to get to this level because he has not had the traditional path to the NBA or what the traditional buzz player of the draft looks like. And for him to be able to do it without being able to play and being cleared and just off an interview, like a process with these teams, I think it speaks volumes to him and his character for sure. Who was that last guy though?
honestly, I don't even know.
Was it Nique Clifford?
Oh yeah, Nique Clifford.
Nique Clifford.
You guys talk Nique on the show, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Gotcha. But yeah, Nique Clifford, starts at Colorado. Not really a late bloomer as much as these guys. He was like Gatorade Player of the Year in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado as a senior. Um, Goes to Colorado, more of a role player for a couple years. Stays there 3 years, contributes to winning in his role. Kind of like scaled down, rebound, move the ball, knock down shots, defend. Decides after his third year, like maybe I should showcase my game in a different light. Goes like 40 miles away to Colorado State and just explodes. The passing, the defense, the explosiveness. And he kind of looks at like fits the mold of these like plug and play wings that
Mm-hmm.
are so valuable on the margins. Test the waters last year. Maybe has like a second round grade. Maybe gets a two-way. Makes a tough decision to return, which we actually talked about in Chicago with you. That was really tough decision for him to return.
Yeah.
You know, going through. We talk about testing the process, or like you go through these team workouts, like you're putting on the NBA jersey, you got the NBA socks. Um,
Yeah.
like it's real. It's like, oh shoot, like I could be in the NBA. And he decides to go back for his last year, and it's kind of the cherry on top. Goes to the tournament, has his most productive season in college basketball, and kind of proves himself as a first round pick. But yeah, I think you can kind of pick apart any level of the draft, whether it's the Coopers, the Dillons, the Ace Baileys, the Kon Knueppels, to kind of the mid first round, some of the guys we just discussed, or even later. Like a lot of these guys are tough, man. Like they're just really resilient, and it's a big reason why NBA teams are kind of attracted to certain players and not to some. A lot of times players could look super talented on film or their highlights, and like fans will go like, "Man, why didn't they make it?" A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it's because of that. That stuff's really important.
You brought up Cooper Flagg. Let's get into the good shit. Is Cooper Flagg a generational prospect to you? It's no right or wrong answer. It's been a conversation that has been happening a long time with people with me. I love Cooper Flagg. I think Cooper Flagg is an incredible basketball player and young man, and I think he's going to have a lot of success. But I'm very curious to know your thoughts because a lot of people have different ideologies on the word generational.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 24, so generational isn't the one I like throwing around. But Cooper is really good, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
he arrived on campus this time last year with a frenzy surrounding him that Duke hasn't seen since Zion. Like, and we talk about like the off the court stuff. Like that's a heavy weight to have on your shoulders. And to his credit, man, he not only answered the bell, but like his improvement rate throughout the season, you could argue is up there with any player in the draft. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, everyone remembers kind of those big moments early in the season where Shire trusted him, put the ball in his hands, and there were a couple times he turned the ball over late,
Mm-hmm.
and it was costly. And then you watch him in, December, January, February. And he's always kind of been marketed this like high motor, versatile defensive player, rebounder, and the offensive skill set really evolved. So, he's coming off ball screens. His passing's awesome at his size. He's kind of mixing guys off with a bounce. He's slashing, and he's just super well rounded. I think he would have went one last year prior, maybe. Like, I mean, he goes one in most drafts. So he's a really, really good prospect. He's young, he's tough, competitive, versatile, and he's not someone you want to doubt, I would say.
He's not somebody you want to doubt. Yeah, no, Cooper Flagg is definitely an incredible player. I love the offensive progression. I love him playing off the elbows in the mid post with Duke. And I think one of the most intriguing things about Cooper Flagg is that he was supposed to be a senior this year. That's the thing that kind of elevates all of it. You know what I mean? He took so much hype as a 17-year-old, I guess like a junior in high school, he did all of this as or a senior in high school, excuse me. And to me, that's one of the most impressive things about him, because a lot of this stuff, and it really hits home for me when I talk to you and we go in depth about different things, even what you just brought up with Nique Clifford. Like, I think a lot of media and fans and everybody, we don't really understand it. We know it, but it doesn't hit us. We're like, yeah, a guy that returned to school after going through the process, he was just talking to Sam Presti, you know what I mean? Or he just put on the jersey, he got the socks, and he had an agent, and maybe did a workout in Portland, or and Anthony Simons was there and was like, hey man, maybe we'll be teammates. And then you walk away from all of that, or you have to go to the hotel room for the next 9 hours and contemplate what decision to make. So I love getting that intel from you. One of the other polarizing guys, for various reasons, Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey is a guy that I've talked to you outside of the camera. I've talked to other people who I respect in the business, and I say it all the time, like Twitter's favorite. Like, he's just like this punching bag that people just love to kind of pick apart for various reasons. And again, everybody's entitled to have an opinion on players and what they like and what they don't like about players. But the Ace Bailey conversations all season long have been just interesting to me. What has been your thoughts on how the conversation around his name has been? What are your thoughts on him as a player? And what do you think of him going into the NBA draft? Because there's been some rumors that he could fall a little bit lower than expected and whatnot.
Yeah. It's not something I expected, the discourse around him. Watched him in high school, watched him prior to Rutgers. I think Ace Bailey's pretty misunderstood when you talk through the lens of how he's covered national media or on Twitter. He's kind of getting picked apart, I think, a little bit unfairly. We could break that down a multitude of ways, but first we'll say, why is he considered atop the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the youngest players in the draft, similar age to Cooper, 18, young, raw. He is nowhere near where he's going to be, right? We talk about some
Absolutely.
of the older guys that come in the league at 22, 23. He's 18. So, he's going to look very different at 22 than he does right now. But with Ace Bailey, you're getting, really raw, advanced shot making. He's just a natural, really gifted shot maker. He has great touch with his size. He's able to pull from deep. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot off the move. And, he's a solid athlete. He can explode in the lane. And then defensively, he has some significant upside with those physical tools. That pairing, right, in a vacuum is really valuable. That's not someone you can just sign in free agency or pick later in the draft. Those are the guys that always go atop the draft. And those are the guys that NBA teams are scouring the globe for. So why is he getting picked apart? Why is he polarizing? Well, Rutgers wasn't very good this year to start. I think they had a losing record. I think you said punching bag earlier. They were the punching bag of the Big Ten at certain points. Team was not constructed very well. I respect that coaching staff, but tough roster construction around those two guys. And then, he has some decision making, and he has some development he needs to do with his handle. And he takes tough shots, like contested pull-ups, or he might look aloof certain plays defensively. So he's kind of evolved in this polarizing player where people question the feel, or they question the handle, or they question whether he can scale down. the part I think I want to speak to is like I've watched him live, 8 or 9 times in different settings, practice, USA basketball, at Rutgers, went to several of their games this year. I think he's a joyful, like really positive, happy kid. He's always got a smile on his face. His teammates gravitate towards him. Super like bubbly personality, like a funny kid, always laughing. I think that should be talked about a little bit more.
Yeah.
He's kind of loose, he's from the South, like he's like a kid. But yeah, I personally am a fan. I would be excited to take him in the top 3 or 4 of the draft. I think those type of tools are something that, if you're in a front office, like that's why you want to pick high in the draft. Like you want to invest into a young player like this and harness what they're good at and help them, smooth out some of the weaknesses of their game. I think his foundation is really solid. There's certainly risk when you're drafting a player that, you have to develop certain things, but I don't think he's been covered fairly. But I will say, like there are worries. Like you talk to certain NBA scouts, some people have loved him throughout the year. Pierre, I had scouts hitting me still in January saying that like he was number 1 on their board.
Wow.
Yeah, like
Wow.
these are people that like watch all the games or traveling around the world. Like he has a lot of NBA interest, but it's just some of the things he's done with the decision making and maybe the tough shots or certain stuff like that. He's become kind of really polarizing, and some teams think it's more risky. They might feel more safe betting on a player that's a little bit more advanced in their journey. But me personally, he's been in our top 3 all season. He'll stay in our top 3, and I think he has an opportunity here to like really silence some doubters. There's just not a lot of guys built like that at 18.
Not at all. And shot making, as we see throughout the playoffs, have been, one of the make or break for a lot of teams, especially when you talk about surrounding your superstar player. If you were a GM, which I don't think could be out of the realm of possibility in your future, and if you ever are, I will be hitting you up for a job. You know what I mean? Just give me a little something. Um, What are you doing at 3 with Philadelphia? We just talked about Ace Bailey being kind of polarized, and I think they've been a polarizing team in this top half of the draft where it's like they're kind of competing if everybody is healthy. But there's also conversations about how much longer they're going to try to go with this group, and if Embiid can't stay healthy, and then you got to start thinking about the future. Do you think Ace Bailey makes sense for either of those directions, and you're solid with taking him at 3 still? Do you think it would be wise for a team like them to trade back? I know that they've been linked to CMB. What are your thoughts on Philadelphia at 3, and what would you do? Not necessarily what you think they would do, because I think those are 2 different things. But what would Jacob Myers, as the GM of the Sixers, do?
I would draft Ace.
Okay.
I'd go through the whole process, right? I bring in all the guys that are within that tier. You listen to your front office. You do all the interviews. You turn every stone. But me personally, yeah, I'm drafting Ace. You talk about the shot making, the defensive upside with his ability to rotate for big blocks and steals and, move his feet a little bit. I think he's got to get stronger. He's got to kind of build out his lower body. He's got to tighten the handle. He kind of plays a little upright, which sometimes is worrisome. But, watch him in high school, watch him at Rutgers. I think there's just too much there to pass on him. I think there's way more risk in passing on Ace Bailey and him just becoming this like big time player.
Mm-hmm.
And then your whole fan base is like, why didn't you do draft Ace? Like you got gifted this top 3 pick. Like, why didn't you draft him?
Yeah.
Then there is taking him and it being some like catastrophic. Like I think it's been so dramatized. I would draft Ace. I respect other people's opinions, but me personally, I'm taking the 18-year-old, 6'9" shot maker that is only scratching the surface of what he could become.
One of the main things I was excited to talk to you about was like the sleepers and the guys that aren't getting enough attention, and we're going to get to that, to the people that's watching. I promise that's coming. Really quick though, because I'm looking at your big board, and though I want to get to the guys that aren't talked about a lot, I still think because there's been so much going on with the draft, so much attention goes to Cooper Flagg and now Dylan Harper because the Spurs have 2. Are they going to trade it? Yada yada yada. I want to quickly fly through some of these guys and just get some information from you. We'll do pros, we'll do cons. Obviously, we're not going to get, um, you know, too negative because, again, we believe that all of these guys have upside and have paths where they can, be really high effective players. Tre Johnson out of Texas. Give us some information on him as briefly as you can. We know he can score, but I'm just very interested to see what you have to say about him.
Man, Pierre, I traveled. I worked really hard to see all these players in person over the past, 18 months or whatever. Something I've taken a lot of pride in. I think it really helps with the evaluations, helps with, talking to people that are, going to all these games. Man, you watch him live, it's like there's a certain level of competitiveness and intensity that not every player has at his age. You can kind of see it in his eyes. Like he's like wired. He is wired. Like he lives and dies basketball. I think he could go summer league's 3-4 weeks away.
Yeah.
He could drop like 35 in the first game, and I
Oh,
wouldn't blink. His ability to just like pull up. There's plays this year where like be like a loose ball, he gets like an offensive rebound like 30 feet out, and just like one dribble shot cash. Like so, he has really good touch. He's like a lethal 3-point shooter. Then it expanding him onto that, 6'6", 6'11", 6'10" wingspan, I think. So he's got good positional size. Underrated passer. We talk about the Twitter demons, the mouse pad, aggressors. I don't know what you want to call them. The calculator boys.
yeah,
The people that live and die by the numbers and tear
absolutely.
down these teenagers without watching the games or maybe understanding the context of who they are. He reads the floor, right? Like I think he's a fine passer. I think that's something you're excited to tap into in an NBA construct with a better roster around him. But yeah, just a lethal scorer and, the instincts and just the competitiveness is like something you'd be really excited about.
VJ Edgecombe.
Explosive. Explosive. Everyone saw against, Mark Few's son gets checked in first week of the season. He just detonates on him in transition. He's just like one of those like top tier athletes. And then to VJ, he's someone, if you keep tabs on him throughout high school, he's gotten better, right? So he's really committed to development. He's kind of evolved into this kind of like Swiss Army knife on the perimeter where I think it starts with his defense because he's so athletic. He can be really disruptive, heat up the ball, play bigger than his size in the passing lanes. He can rebound. And then offensively, he can do a little bit of everything. He shot really well this year. That was a big point NBA teams looking at.
Mm-hmm.
He's developed a little bit on the ball. He's a little bit more comfortable attacking. So, yeah, big-time athlete, kind of a Swiss Army knife, some on-ball stuff to unlock potentially. Exciting player.
Your Terp guy, Derik Queen.
Derik's fun to watch, man. I think from an entertainment perspective, he's another one that could have a big summer league. So he's 6'10", and he's just got this like innate feel for the game that you don't often see in big men.
He does, yeah.
He processes the game at a speed you just don't see. He's got a handle. He can pass. He can attack from the perimeter, grab it off the glass, and initiate an open floor. So with him, it's like he has this really impressive creativity as a driver, as a passer, playmaker. And then he's got that old school game too. Like you throw it to him on the block. He's got really advanced footwork. He's crafty, but he's as comfortable kind of like on the block as he is just like running the floor with the ball, initiating. The swing skill for him is going to be the shooting. And then NBA teams really, he's a little bit polarizing with, some of the defensive stuff throughout the year. He's not overly explosive. I think he's almost an underrated athlete from a lens of coordination, hand-eye coordination, like balance, attacking and with the ball. But he's not overly explosive. He's not really a rim protector. So there's a lot of teams that are turned off by that. Like they want their five-man to, block shots or be an anchor. And then there's like his engagement level wavered a little bit throughout the year, which worried some teams. But from a talent perspective, like he's up there, man. I think his upside is significant. So I have him high on there. I just don't think there's a lot of guys like that in the NBA. He gets comped to certain players. I think he's really unique. And, knowing him personally, loves basketball, man. Like, wants to be great.
You could tell by his game that he loves basketball, watches a lot. Personally, I kind of believe in the shot a little bit. It looks good. It just didn't, have the success that I think he would have wanted. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to knock it down a little bit better at the NBA. Jeremiah Fears.
Whew. You're a Jeremiah Fears guy, right? If my
Yeah,
memory serves me
Jeremiah
correctly.
Fears. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, he's just so dynamic. I think he's got the best handle in the class. Out of Oklahoma, played in the gauntlet of the SEC, and
Hmm.
he was kind of the catalyst for them. And they made the tournament. He had a really good year. Super dynamic on the ball. He changes gears seamlessly because of that tight handle, that quick twitch athleticism. He's got good burst. And then something I think that really drew me to his game, I'm always a little bit more hesitant with the small guards. I think they get annoyed at a little bit too quickly. It's just such a tough position to play in the NBA. There's not a lot of them. But
Absolutely.
but man, the way he's a little bit under 6'4", I think, maybe 6'4", like 6'5", 6'6" wingspan. He's got like solid size, but he's by no means like a bigger guard. He's like attacking in transition and like nailing his body against dude's
Hmm.
chest. He's drawing fouls, his balance, his coordination, super creative. So it's hard not to see his upside. But he's a big time performance this year, and he's another one that like I can't wait to watch him in summer league.
A guy who I will be honest with you. I slept on him a little bit. It took me some time to really see the vision, but now that I see it, it's very clear. Kon Knueppel, I won't lie. During the season, when I was looking at mock boards and I only saw the first 5 Duke games, and Kon Knueppel was mocked at 7, I'm like, what are we talking about? And then the season goes on, the competition level goes up. He displays a little bit more. I turn on the TV one time. He's putting the ball on the floor. He's guarding. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see. Give us some insight on Kon.
I had a feeling that was the name that was coming. I respect that you trust your eyes. So I honestly, I'd rather you say that than be like, oh, I saw he was 7th player on someone's board, so I started tricking myself into why they're good.
Oh, no,
Um,
no.
yeah. But nah, I mean, Kon starts with the shooting, knockdown shooter, demands a closeout. Once he gets the closeout, really good at reading the floor. So he's able to, play off pump fakes, side steps, awesome feel for the game. So he can read the second defender, he can read the help, awesome passer. You saw him this year. He had great synergy with Kaman Maluach in the pick and roll, awesome timing, precise with his passes. And then, it's just really good feel, really good shooting. I mean, that's the NBA, right? You want a guy that can play on or off the ball, be adaptable offensively. And then defensively, I had questions entering the year, kind of more of a pudgy frame.
Hmm.
The foot speed was going to be an issue. I thought he was like pretty solid defensively. I'm pretty confident he can guard his own position at the NBA level. I don't think he's a stopper, but I think he's an adequate defender. So yeah, he's just super adaptable, very balanced skill set. And we talk about some of the the intangibles, like by all accounts, like really high level kid.
Another guy that I don't want to use the word polarizing, but a guy that like I would say polarizing based off who I talk to or what I see. Like I'll see a mock and this guy will be 10th still. I'll see a mock and he'll go 19. Egor Demin. He's kind of all over the place depending on who you ask. I see him, you still have him 10 on your big board. I love this game. I'm a sucker for, tall playmaking guards. That's why we got Penny Hardaway behind me and whatnot. What are the things about him that still has him 10th for you?
I'm happy we're highlighting his game. He's been for me because of the polarizing nature. He's been one of my favorite players to kind of figure out throughout the year. Was high on him entering the year out of Real Madrid. Russian, 6'9" guard, legitimately a 6'9" guard, 6'11", near 7-foot wingspan. So he's got this he's just huge.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like we talk about with Derik. Like his feel for the game is special. It's just like rare. The ability to, it's like he's got eyes in the back of his head and the side of his head and on his arms. Like he just has this amazing court mapping. The reason why he's polarizing, his handle is a little underdeveloped for
Mhm.
someone that size. So like when he played at Houston or some of these awesome defensive teams in the Big 12, they would just blitz him, put a defender on him, sit under him, and he struggled. Um, the reason why I've kept him top 10 in our board all year is I see a kid that's really young, just turned 19, 6'9", elite feel for the game, solid athlete, amazing instincts, and I just think there's too much there to not work. Now, I do understand why certain teams wouldn't want to take him.
Mhm.
There's he doesn't really there's things you got to figure out, right? He's been inconsistent as a shooter always. He shot really well at his pro day. He shot it well in the tournament. He had a couple of threes against Wisconsin.
Shot it well to start the season.
Yeah. His production faltered off against some of the better competition, which is why people picked him apart. But yeah, I'm really enticed with his upside and also just kind of his floor. Some people get really limited on like, is he a point guard? Is he off the ball? I don't really care, like, right? Like those traits, the foundation there is really solid. I think he could kind of be more of like a connector. It's just going to depend on like which avenues of his game develop. So like if he becomes a much better, pull-up shooter, he can probably play a lot on the ball if he can handle pressure. Now, if he gets really good off the catch, hey man, he can play, 1-3, 1-4 as he gets stronger. I
Yep.
think defensively he deserves a little bit more attention. I think he's going to be a good defender. He's good off the ball, and because of that feel, he's able to like have really good recognition and pick up deflections. And then in the open floor, he's dynamic. But yeah, polarizing is probably the right word. He's not for everybody. I personally am a fan. I'm really intrigued to see where it goes, but I could understand why some people are a little bit, hesitant with some of the weaknesses.
If they were in the same class, and this may be a silly question, but I forget your opinion on this guy. Who would you have had higher, him or Topic? Would it have been Topic?
I probably would have. It's a good question. I probably go Egor, to be honest.
Okay.
I feel like Egor's foundation will allow him to be adaptable more than people suggest. I'd say, just because guys with length, athleticism, like a little bit like baseline athleticism, I'd say like he's not a freak athlete, but he can move.
Yeah.
NBA strength and conditioning will allow him to kind of refine his movement patterns a little bit. He'll be a little bit lighter, a little bit more bend. But like guys with that youth, feel, length, like it's like they don't fail really, right? I mean, like someone's gonna be able to figure it out, I think. And then certain coaching staffs, I feel like, this is maybe something fun to talk about. Is you go through the pre-draft process and everyone's doing these mocks. This player is going here, this player is going there. Something that's not talked about enough is like the coaching staff usually has to pass on the player, right? Like be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna coach him. And I could see some coaching staffs being like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't trust him on the ball. I don't know if maybe they don't buy the shooting. Like, they're confused. Like, I don't know how we'd use him. And then I think there's probably some coaching staffs are like, hell yeah, give me the 6'9" elite playmaker who like understands how to play. We'll figure out the shooting. He'll be solid defensively. Like, we'll just figure it out. We can be really creative with actions. Yeah, so I would probably lean Egor. I'm just really intrigued, but we'll see how it goes.
I'm with you though on that. Like that's sometimes my mentality is like I think sometimes you can overthink and overevaluate certain situations because, like you just mentioned, in the NBA, we're talking about 6'9", incredible size, incredible length, but also just knowing the game and knowing how to play basketball kind of allows you to have a more upside of being a successful basketball player at any level. If I was coaching youth basketball right now and I had a group of kids and you can tell me that I can get guys who know and understand the game, I'll take that over a lot of the other things because we can do a lot more with somebody who knows how to play. I'm looking at the playoffs, and there's a lot of guys who are inconsistent in certain things that I think the NBA is gravitating to, but they figure things like Caruso. And I know Caruso and Egor Demin are two completely different players and prospects, but I just look at a guy like Caruso who didn't shoot the ball that great in the regular season, but now all of a sudden is making shots. He knows where to be when he isn't making shots. He's an incredible cutter. He can make a sound decision when he does have the basketball in his hands. And one of these NBA Finals games, he was creating shots, Euro stepping, all type of shit. So I value guys personally. I'm no GM or a scout, but I do value guys that know how to play the basketball and have high intellect because base level, floor, you're going to at least know how to figure some things out versus kind of like just being pure athletic. You know what I mean? So I definitely agree with you on that standpoint. Any teams for you personally that you would love to see him end up on to reach his fullest potential?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I agree. Like when you have a base level base level feel and instincts and like a know-how, like basketball is a problem solving sport, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
football. You're not running a route. You're not like, oh, I'm blocking this person or this scheme. Like a lot of it is unplanned. So when you have someone with that size, that ability to just read the game And then I spent some time with him in Chicago, and like, I feel comfortable with that kid, right? Like I'm confident that like, he took it hard on himself this year when he struggled.
Mm.
Like really hard on himself. And he's someone that's like curious, really loves basketball, watches basketball. Yeah, I'm confident he's gonna figure it out. Teams, I think, like Brooklyn seems like really
Yes.
interesting. Like
Yes.
that almost would be like the one, because you got
Mm-hmm.
one, they're not limited to anything, so they can just try shit out for lack of
Yep.
a better term. So they got a couple picks in the first round. Washington would be another team that can kind of just throw things around. I think that'd be very interesting. You got Bub, you got Bilal, you got Sar, you got Keyshawn. Um, Other teams, Portland is one that
Yes.
pops. They've had some
Mm-hmm.
success with a lot of those rangy like wings that can kind of connectors. San Antonio has a bunch of players. OKC is good for everybody.
Great spot for
Um,
everybody.
one that popped for me, Minnesota would be kind of
Hey,
interesting.
thank you. Minnesota
Yeah,
at 17. Yes. Yes.
yeah. I don't know if he makes it there. I think he's gonna go in the lottery. But like Minnesota would be pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with these really good teams, it's like they're so successful. Like they're interesting for most players, right? Like you put anyone in OKC, you're like, oh, they're gonna be a
Yeah,
star,
for
just because
sure.
their like program is so successful and enriching the players' success. But yeah, those are some of the teams. I'm sure there's a couple other ones. It's really just gonna come down to like he's one like I hope he goes high, just so his investment level by the organization is pretty high. Because I just want to
Mm.
see what it looks like with full investment. But another thing I'd add is like something that bothers me, and I've argued so much on the phone about Egor this year with like scouts and friends and people that evaluate these players for a living. And like when people bring up the Houston game as like a con, like dude, like I'm sorry, but like few teams across the world defend like Houston.
Yeah.
Like any 6'9" ball handler at 18 years old is gonna get like heated up on the ball by Houston. I feel like that's not like a median level comparison for the NBA. Like it's just
You
yeah.
tell me this. What prospect, if you're selling them, which one of these prospects film are you selling against Houston in the last 3 or 4
Yeah.
years? Like when you go, if you're sitting down with a coach and you say, "Hey man, you gotta tap into this guy. Let me show you a minute of his highlights or a minute of film." Is there any prospect who we're using the footage against Houston? I personally don't know, but you watch more college basketball, more prospect profile than me. But from what I know, I can't remember a game against Houston where I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm going to show evaluators because
Yeah,
that's what they
hell
do.
no.
Yeah.
Hell no. It's funny. I don't know about Houston. It's probably few and far between. One that comes to mind when you describe that is like Big 12 tournament 2022. I think that's the year. Davion Mitchell was giving Cade Cunningham hell.
He was, yes.
Oh my gosh. Like
Yeah.
seatbelt, they call it. Like under him. And big ball handlers, big playmakers, 6'8", 6'9", 6'7", long arms, just from like a physics and like from just like a measurement profile. It's gonna be
Hmm.
difficult to handle the basketball.
Always.
I talked about this with Rasheer, who's got a 7'5" wingspan. And he's kind of been a big man. He's played some wing, and something that teams are questioning is the handle, the creation, the ability
Hmm.
to, make those quick decisions. That's something that he hasn't really shown at a high level. And he's like, man, I got a 7'5" wingspan. Like it's difficult to dribble.
Yeah.
It's funny. I watched him work out with Walter Clayton Jr. and Kaman Malawach.
Mm.
So that's like you got this dynamic flame throwing guard, this like toolsy wing that can like defend and shoot and kind of has this like NBA 2K archetype. And then you got Kaman Malawach, who's just like 9'8" standing reach, absolute giant. And watching them play ones for like 30 minutes, and they were going hard. And again, this isn't the end all be all my evaluation, but it was interesting just kind of seeing like those three guys go back together, and it kind of shows the point where like when you're that long, I talked about with Cedric too, 7'2" wingspan. That's something he's had to improve. Like
Yeah.
it's just tougher to dribble. Like there's more radius to steal the ball. So if you're a
Hmm.
Davion, if you're a Jamal Shed, one of these like disruptive, point of attack defenders on a Houston or some of these really good defensive teams in the Big 12, like it makes sense. It should have been expected for him to struggle. Now, making a lot of excuses here, but I'm just trying to paint the picture to, why he struggled, why certain things went a certain way. And when I kind of, for him, when I deduct all the data points and the whole evaluation and who he is and what he could be, what he is now, I'm investing in that player. I think it's a special mix. And I think it's a foundation that be fun to develop.
I got a couple more guys I want to ask you about, but while it's on top of my mind, do you as a evaluator, do you believe in overevaluation? And the reason I'm asking that is because a lot of times these guys are one and done. We're watching really 1 year. There's a lot of data about what they did at the high school level in previous spots, but obviously you have to take high school with a grain of salt. So we're really getting about sometimes 25 to 30 game sample size. And as students of the game, former players, a lot of things can happen in 25 games. A guy can have a really hot shooting stretch, and we find out that that's not the real version of him. Some guys can struggle, environment, away from home, pressure. There's a lot of different things that can go into somebody having one bad season. And I found it interesting because obviously Modest Buzelis, shout out to Modest Buzelis, that's the homie. But I remember one of the first conversations I had with him before he got drafted. He looked at us and told us on our show, hey, man, if I shoot the ball this much better, I'm the number 1 overall pick. It's funny how, I struggled a little bit, and now I done dropped all the way down. And he was valid in that. This is a guy that going into that year was like a top 3 lock. And the shot didn't go necessarily the way people wanted to see. And he fell, almost 11, 12 spots down. So how do you feel about that? And how do you kind of solve that problem for yourself as an evaluator to not take too much into things, but also to not ignore too much? You know what I'm saying?
Man, that's a $1 billion question. To the first part, I would say, that's something I've actually been really curious about. Like, what's the right amount to watch a player? As I've, taken this more seriously, tried to really harp in on these players, watch them in high school, and kind of the feedback I get from people I trust in the NBA, people that have done this for a while, the lifers of the sport, is you don't want to watch too much too early because, we're projecting human beings, right? And we're human beings. So there's a lot of biases. And one of the strongest biases is an anchoring bias. So, and I could have it a little bit with Egor. That's for another that's for another day. But let's say I watch a player in high school and I keep telling myself he's the guy, and I really liked him early, and he starts to struggle. But my anchor is like, oh no, he's the guy. So I just am convincing myself he's the guy. So I think it's dangerous to watch a player too much too early. So watching a player in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. That's why I hate when the high school evaluators label these guys NBA players before they're 17, 18 years old. It's relax, be patient. But I think that's really astute. The point you said with Matas, one that sticks out to me is I'll just clip it up one of our film sessions with Jameer Watkins from Florida State. And when I look at him, it's his analytical profile. He has more turnovers than assists. He didn't shoot the ball that well, but you watch his games when he played at VCU, you watch him at Florida State, and it's he was just asked to do too much. So kind of to your first point, reading too much into what's most recent. So yeah, he didn't shoot the ball that well. He turned it over. But when I watch him play, I'm all right, well, if he was the 4th or 5th player on the court instead of the first guy atop the scouting reports, well, he can attack a closeout, he can pass, makes reads. He shot 40% on spot up threes. It's just he kind of struggled when they threw the kitchen sink at him. Well, he's not going to be throwing a kitchen sink at him in the NBA. So right. I think certain stuff like that, you talk about over evaluating. I think you want to reach a level of practicality where you want to know enough. You don't want to overlook it. There's no reason to watch every Rutgers game from the season. It's just, but at the same time, you don't want to watch, Ace Bailey's best 3 games or his synergy highlights and be this is who he is. So I think the long-winded answer, but the simple answer is you want to watch, you want to check in on the players on their journey enough. So you get a feel for their trajectory, how they're improving, maybe they're getting stagnant, their attitude. And you just want to build a book, at least this is what NBA teams do. You want to build a book and you want to have full confidence in who the player is as a person, how they've grown, what they offer right now, and what they could be with additional investment. But yeah, I think that's you could do a whole podcast on that question.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally, bro. We gonna have to do a part 2 and just really dive into those things. To resume some of these prospects though, before we get to our sleepers and our guys that are maybe overlooked. Carter Bryant, a guy who's, had a nice rise since March into the NBA draft boards and mock drafts. What's your thoughts on him?
Carter Bryant's one of those players you watch him, and within 2 minutes you can be like, he's probably an NBA player. The frame, the athleticism, the shooting, defensive versatility, the rebounding. He just kind of fits the mold.
Mm-hmm.
6'8", 7'2" wingspan, 7-foot wingspan, young. So for him, in high school, he had some tendencies where he was more like, trying to create off the bounds, just trying to get to his mid range, pull up. And, that turned off some evaluators. Goes to Arizona, really buys into like a scared down role, kind of like a combo forward, like a 4/3, knocked down open shots, made simple reads, defended, rebounded. That's super appealing to an NBA team for a 19-year-old to buy into his role. What he showed was translatable. So it makes sense that, as he's going through these workouts in an open gym and a 1-on-0 workout or 3-on-3, like he just kind of looks the part. So yeah, he's someone that, got invited to the green room, and he's a safe bet to hear his name called in the lottery.
Probably a guy. I'll be honest with you, Jacob. If I was one of these GMs and I had a lottery pick, even a top 5 pick, I may take Carter Bryant. I'm in love with guys that know how to play basketball. And when I look around the NBA, I feel like some of the bottom tier teams are at the bottom because it's too much shooting for the P word, which is potential. It's like every player should have a good source and amount of potential, you know what I mean, to go somewhere. But just, I love a player that has that, but also the floor of Carter Bryant is an intuitive player who showed at Arizona he can play without the basketball, which I think a lot of guys have to prepare for that type of identity as an NBA player, because when you get to the league, we're talking about the Kevin Durant's, the Sheas, the Jokic's. It's hard to dominate the ball in the NBA. You have to be one of those guys. And for him to be able to buy into that role as an 18-year-old guard, 4 to 5 positions, depending on how small the team is going, and to be able to knock down the corner threes as good as he was, and just trajecting as a shooter, getting better and progressing throughout the year, I think is also something that was encouraging. So I love everything that you said about Carter Bryant. One of my personal favorites. I just feel like he's a safe bet. He's just a safe bet. Will Riley, you have at 13. I text you about Will Riley in our personal conversations and whatnot. What stands out about him? Because he's not a guy that on a lot of mocks or even big boards you'll see at 13. He's not a guy that's mocked too low. He's just a guy that has that range that you talked about early in the podcast, where after a certain point, a guy could be projected to go 15 to 25. It's just that type of draft. But what are some things that intrigues you about Will Riley?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. To start, always has had NBA fans. He was a prolific scorer on the EYBL circuit. He won MVP at Basketball Without Borders. So he showed an abundance of talent at the levels where NBA teams were allowed to be in the building. So he entered the season with a lot of praise. So for him, it starts with me. I saw him live at Hoop Summit about 14 months ago. And I'm watching him compete against like the top guys. AJ Debansa, VJ Edgecombe, Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, everybody. Kaman's in the paint, like Asa Newell, like most of the lottery this year. And I'm looking at the frame, and he's really getting bumped off his spots. He's really having, trouble defending, rebounding. He's just like struggling. He's going through it. He was a little sick. I think he had a cold. He told me that. But so I started to question, me being a Big Ten guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how this kid's gonna fit in the Big Ten. Like, especially at Illinois, hard-nosed coach. You got to defend, you got to rebound. Watch him throughout the season. I mentioned Cooper Flagg's improvement rate. Outside Cooper Flagg, I don't think anyone improved more throughout the year. And part of that goes to the way he was used. They started using him more off the ball. So with Will, I kind of see him as more of a guard than a wing. I think he has some real juice on the ball with his instincts as a scorer. He can, play make out of the pick and roll. And then the improvement and the competitiveness he's shown is kind of like a wiry kid, willing to fight through physicality. By the end of the year, he was able to get downhill, play off bumps, draw fouls, crashes the offensive glass. So for me, every year you can go on Tankathon. I love the guys at Tankathon. I'll give them a shout out. And you
Yeah,
can
time to take a
view
time.
their high level. You go through all the past drafts. Like they're always like an upside swing in the late lottery that
Mm-hmm.
hits. There's some misses too, but there's usually someone that outside the top 10 that just hits. And usually it's someone like on the ball with feel, with competitiveness, with some size. And this year, I think that might be the guy.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm really enticed with his improvement and what he offers with his shooting, playmaking, ability to play make on the ball. The question for him is going to be the defense and the frame. So like, how
Yeah.
much stronger can he get? Doesn't have that long of wingspan. He's got like a +1 wingspan, more narrow, kind of a higher center of gravity. So he's going to have some real question marks defensively. But yeah, as I got more into the process and, maybe some of the players I was watching too much, making the board, overthinking some things. But he's just someone I kind of, as I went back to, just trusting my instincts, trusting my gut, talking to people I trust. I think he's a really enticing upside swing.
I'm not mad at it at all. Um,
It's a funny
20,
way to put it.
20. No, I like him. I like him, but the thing that I try to avoid, and thankfully for me, I'm not in your position where people are clinging on to what I'm saying too much. Sometimes people do. Um, but I try not to get caught up into the flash. A lot of the times where I just coincidentally, when I turned on the Illinois game, he was having one of those nights. For the most part, I turned on some Illinois games where he struggled for sure. Freshman, young, I'm understanding of that. But I try not to get caught up in too much of the hoopla because you turn on the game and the dude is going for 30 some points. I forget who that was against. He had like a crazy game off the bench one night.
Xavier in the tournament, the first game, first game off
Xavier
the
in the
bench,
tournament,
he had like 30. I'll throw another point on here. I was at the Rutgers game. They played at Rutgers in
Michigan
February, I think.
State, Michigan State
Yep,
game.
Michigan State. And I agree with you. Like you don't want to like see their high moments and be like, oh, let's just ignore all the struggles. But for me,
Hmm.
I think it was the consistent kind of upticks. So I was at the Rutgers game in February, and like Kasparas started to struggle at that point of the season, and Rutgers is kind of giving it to him, and tough crowd, like really aggressive, and he just kind of has a little bit of like shit to him, right? Like he's tough. Like he's really tough. Like his competitiveness and his toughness, I think, exceeds his frame. And from that game on, I really paid a lot of attention to end the season. I thought it was just kind of constant ticks, got more comfortable, and I liked the improvement rate. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of risk when you're betting on the upside swings, right? As many upside swings that hit, there's a lot of misses.
Hmm.
So like, it's going to depend on the team. I don't know if I'd like for surely draft him in the lottery. He did get invited in the green room, so the NBA views him. On their voting ballots, they view him as like a consensus top 18, top ish pick. But yeah, I'm enticed. I'm enamored by the upside.
Switching gears to his teammate. You have him at 21st, Kasparas Jakucionis. I know that there are some things you do like about him, but 21 is probably the lowest I've seen him. What has him at 21 for you compared to others?
One of the toughest evaluations for me all year. Him being at 21 says more about the guys in front of him than him. Like I said to start the show, like that middle of the first round, I think is pretty flat.
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon the team, like I might draft him in the lottery. Certain teams, I do have. There's a lot of things I like about him. The toughness I think he has as well. Awesome feel for the game. Strong guard, good positional size, crafty, draws fouls, rebounds. Like you don't want to bet against guys with that level of feel, toughness, and youth. The part where maybe I'm a little bit lower than like most people. Like I've seen people have him like top 5, top 6. He really struggled to protect the basketball throughout the year. So like
He did.
I think he had 13 games with 5+ turnovers, which is kind of like wow. And for me, it's like if he's gonna be on the ball, he's got to be really effective on the ball to take the ball out of a number one option on an NBA team's hands, right? So for me, as I evaluate these like ball handlers, I'm like, all right, well, the first metric is like, is he dynamic enough to take the ball out of insert whatever star? Every team has a star. And, he's kind of ball screen dependent. He's awesome to pick and roll. Like pick and roll maestro, can make all the passes, awesome at drawing fouls. But like he struggles to separate off the bounce. He was kind of sloppy on closeouts defensively and offensively. Like he travels sometimes or so the teams that really like him, they see someone that's just like connector, on or off the ball, high feel, attack or close out, pick and roll, shoot, defend. I'm somewhere in between. He might end up higher on my final board. He's someone I really could keep going back and forth on. I
Okay.
think he probably ends up like somewhere from like 12 to 22. But yeah, I like the rebounding. I like the pick and roll. I like the competitiveness. I have some questions about, the ability to separate off the bounce for an NBA guard, and the shooting a little bit. I worry about a little bit too.
Last guy I'm gonna ask you about before I get into like sleepers or just guys that I think a lot of people aren't educated on. Noa Essengue. This is a guy that's like he's kind of rising as we get closer and closer to this draft.
I'm happy you brought these guys up back to back. Probably the two ongoing evaluations for me where I'm like, I'm still trying to figure them out, right? He's still playing as well. So Noah, one of the youngest players in the draft, within a month or two, a Cooper Flagg, long, gangly, kind of like fluid, right? So like he's versatile defensively, shows some feel on passes, but he's kind of raw, right? So in the German league, he's able to kind of just like produce with his kind of weird movements, and that's a strength, right? Like he's rebounding, he's scoring, he's showing passes. For me, for the intrigue with him is like you got this long, rangy wing that can do a little bit of everything. Pour into him. What does he look like at 21, 22? So he's got some intriguing upside. He's another one for me. Like I keep going back and forth where I want to like slot him on my board. I think he ends up going the lottery or mid first round. He has some great momentum. It really helps. We see these late risers because international, their high stakes basketball is after the college season.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I say, summing up his game, rangy, like kind of a combo forward / probably can maybe play a little bit of big, young, with very like interesting tools.
Now, real quick, I'm gonna throw some names out here. I'm trying to get educated on some of these guys as well. So just keep that in mind as well. Nolan Traore, a guy who I remember the first time I heard his name, it was because he was projected to be a top 5 guy in this class. Now, consensus is around where you have him, 25. I see him in the late first round pick, sometimes the last pick of the first round. Why is he so low now compared to when this class was first being talked about? And yeah, just educate us on him a little bit.
I would say it's difficult a year and ahead projecting a draft, right? So for him, going to Hoop Summit, he killed in the practices. Man, I'm sitting there like, he is frying. Like the pace, the quickness, the IQ, like he was dicing everyone up at Hoop Summit. And then that spring in the events overseas, ANGT, playing with France in Eurobasket, he just had a really just absolutely outstanding summer. So he had a lot of momentum to start the draft cycle. And, sometimes it hurts to have those high expectations because it makes it seem like they didn't reach something that's not even real, right? That's just another person's opinion of you. And the reality is like everything up into the draft is what he is. So for him, I think he goes high. You said some people got him like late, last pick of the first round. He probably goes mid to late first round. Another Frenchman, 18-year-old French point guard. The ability to like play make at high speed, that's what sets him apart from other guys. Like his quickness downhill, struggled a little bit this season with the shooting and with the defense, which is why I think maybe, he called a drop or whatever down boards. But he also got invited to the green room, has a lot of NBA fans, one of those, dynamic ball handlers in the class, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Joan, I hope I'm pronouncing the first name right. Beringer.
Yeah, so it's Joan Beringer.
Beringer, my guy.
I messed up his name like twice on 2 shows, and I eventually had his agent, and I'm like, I need a voice memo of how I say it because I was struggling so much and I felt bad. Man, he's fascinating. I think you're going to be a fan of him. Maybe you already are. He's the kind of player
I'm learning right now.
Yeah, so late bloomer, right? We talk about the late bloomers kind of being appealing to NBA teams. 18 years old, only played organized basketball about 3 years. Grew up playing soccer, super raw, but like the measurements are crazy. 6'11" barefoot, 7'4.5" wingspan. And he's just like this uber athletic, rangy, like defensive weapon. He's flying around. He's still kind of figuring out how to play. He'll like just super rangy, lob threat, And it's just like there's a lot of upside there with those athletic tools, the trajectory. So he's really intriguing. I think he probably gets one of the last green room invites.
Okay.
And he could go as high as the lottery.
What would you what would you compare him to? Sounds some of the things you said reminds me like a Nick Claxton or something like that.
Yeah, more quick twitch. He's kind of
Mm.
like I think the easier, kind of like an Eve Missy a little bit, but like
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit more light on his feet, a little bit lower center of gravity. But like you're looking at a guy that immediately can impact with, he probably has a learning curve, but with that athleticism and the leaping and the catch radius, he can put a lot of pressure on the rim as a lob threat. And then defensively, he projects with the way he moves his feet and the fluidity he has as an athlete. He can kind of be this like super versatile weapon. So that's kind of what I compare him to.
Out of all the guys we have not named, give me 3 to 5 of like I hate using the word sleeper, but guys that are I guess overlooked or that doesn't get enough attention in your opinion when we're talking about the draft and draft cycle? Because there are still some names up here that we haven't gotten to. Obviously, if we were to touch on every single name, it'd be a 5-hour podcast. But I'm just looking at the list of names in front of me, and yeah, like I'm very curious to know the guys that to you that maybe not, you know, are the sexiest picks or have the most upside, but guys that you feel like could carve out success at the NBA level that nobody's really going to go out there with to speak on.
So it's a bit tricky for me to label guys sleepers now because at League Him we kind of reverse the coverage, right? So with the watch list, we focus on the sleepers first. So like the Cedric
Hmm.
Cowards, the Rasheer Flemings, Jameer Watkins, the Axel Lindenbergs, the insert names, Keyshawn George last year, Bob Carrington, Ryan
Great,
Dunn.
all great picks, by the way. Keyshawn George, I love. Ryan Dunn, you do such an amazing job in my opinion with that.
I appreciate that. I would say, I don't know about sleepers. I'll say a couple names we haven't talked about that maybe, the average NBA fan hasn't heard about. One I'd start with is Thomas Sorber, Georgetown
Hmm.
big man. You know, from Philly, he was always kind of like a bruiser in high school, like really physical, good competitor, had more of a wider build. And by the time this fall rolled around and NBA scouts are doing their rounds, generated quite a little bit of buzz. He
Hmm.
really chiseled his frame. He's moving better. Like he just completely changed his body. So he entered the season with a lot of NBA fans. So like I went to some of his early games in November, being local on the East Coast, and like a lot of NBA teams there to evaluate him in person. Decision makers, GMs traveling to see him. So he's like really interesting. He's got like a 7 foot, I want to say 7'6" wingspan.
Hmm.
Um, and he has really good instincts. So when you blend the instincts and the length and a guy that has really changed his frame, he can kind of be adaptable on both ends of the floor. Operate out of DHOs, he rebounds, makes good passes. Defensively, he can cover ground, especially like horizontally because of the length and his low
Hmm.
center of gravity. He's someone I could hear his name called, like maybe Chicago at 12,
Yes. Hmm.
um, maybe Atlanta. But he probably goes somewhere from like 11 to 18. He'd be interested in Minnesota as well. I think they like those players with the level of length and instincts. Another guy worth talking about. Let's go with Adou Thiero. Have you seen Adou Thiero?
Yes, 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 yes. I can't believe he get mocked so. I understand it's so many players, but when you just talk
Yeah.
about a weapon on the wing, that's he man. I'm intrigued with him.
So, we're hour 20 into the show. Not a lot of people hear this. I don't like sharing too much. So we recruited him in Maryland. And
Okay.
he was a point guard to start. He played
Mm.
in Pennsylvania, son of a coach. And like ultra late bloomer. He sprouted from like 6'3" to like 6'6" his senior year of high school, something like that, something crazy. And now I would argue he's the best athlete, most disruptive athlete in the entire class. I would honestly
Yes.
put him ahead of VJ just because the power, the length, the size, 7 foot
Hmm.
wingspan. And, he got injured end of the year. So maybe that is why, if he was a guy who maybe played at the scrimmages or maybe you hear a little bit of buzz at workouts, I watched him shoot in Chicago. That's going to be a big swing skill for him. But like, I mean, you're intrigued by him. The athleticism is crazy, like disruptive. Defensively, I think he can switch. He can really apply pressure on the ball, off the ball, rebound. And I think there's some upside to tap into for him. Not be an upside, but like further development and just like knocking down shots, simplified offensive role. But like that level of physical tools and the trajectory is pretty appealing. Those are guys that are really valuable if you're looking at like end of the first round. He's someone I'd be excited to get in like the 20s. And then third
Same.
player,
A team like the Nets that have 4 picks.
100%.
Yeah.
I like him for like, let me look at the teams. I think he starts like even imagine him in like Miami
Oh my gosh.
or shit OKC. Like OKC,
I don't want to
like,
see him at OKC. I'm tired of them getting everybody.
his. I think he probably has better feel than he showed, but like if he could attack closeouts and he was in OKC, oh my goodness. But like Orlando likes these big, rangy athletes. I could see New Orleans. They just traded into 23. And then late first round, you look at these teams like he don't get past the Clippers at 30. Like Boston at 28. Brooklyn has a pair of picks. Hey, I think he's pretty safely a first round pick because of that. Third player, do you have any players you want to talk about?
What about these guys that maybe are not sexy one and done? So like a Ryan Kalkbrenner. I've been liking Ryan Kalkbrenner for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years. This is a guy that I thought was going to be in the NBA years ago, and he kept going back. Now 23 years old, big. I think he does a lot of winning things as a big man. But I'll let you go into depth on Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick hitting on these last couple names so we can get through some more. But yeah, Ryan Kalkbrenner, really simple sell. 7-footer, mans the paint, drop coverage big, hits the occasional trail 3. Like really simple. 3-time defensive player of the year in the Big East. Like very simple sell. Yeah. Pretty safely to hear his name called 25 to 32. Lob threat, putbacks. Like, yeah.
Kobe Bryant.
Shooter. Knockdown shooter. Yeah, just elite shooter.
Rocco Zakarski.
Yeah, it seems like I'm a little bit lower than some. Just huge. Like huge and young. Good project big. Aussie.
I cannot pronounce his name, but I've seen this guy's highlights, and I'm digging him.
But I think I know what you're gonna say.
Bogojo Markovic.
At Hoop Summit, they called him Bogey.
Okay.
That's what Kai and Anthony was calling him. They had an interesting relationship. Yeah, like 6'11", Serbian forward, kind of like a stretch 4, has a little pop to him. It's interesting. I think he's kind of like one of the more interesting second round kind of international swings. Young, can shoot, good touch, soft touch, and he's got some more stuff to unlock.
What about Hanson Yang? He's getting a lot of buzz on Twitter. I know you're not a guy that focuses too much on what Twitter is saying or anything like that, but I every time I log into Twitter, I'm seeing this guy.
Fun to watch, man. He's been playing in the Chinese Basketball Association. He's like 7'2", I want to say, 7'3", 7'4" wingspan. Awesome passer, super crafty. Got the old school post game. Held his own at the combine scrimmages, moving his feet defensively a little bit. Probably goes somewhere in the 30s. Interesting, okay. Kind of like high skill big man.
And the guy I'm late on, Kobe Sanders.
Kobe Sanders, another late bloomer. We've been talking a lot of late bloomers. 5-year college player, really didn't skip a step, right? He didn't take the elevator. Went from 5 points a game to 7 to 12, and he erupts his last 2 years. But you're looking at like a 6'8" kind of playmaker. He's kind of played a lot of point guard for Nevada, can play out of the pick and roll, shot at like a 34% clip, has some length to him. I would say he's a sleeper. He's older. I think he probably goes somewhere from like 32 to 40-ish, maybe 32 to 45, depending upon how the teams go. But kind of some interesting traits with the field. We talk about the field, the length, late bloomer.
I want to wrap up with some NBA draft superlatives. No pressure. We'll fly through these. Overall biggest riser.
Cedric Coward. went from Division III to Eastern Washington to Washington State, played 6 games, killing the interview process, measured well at the combine, without question, Cedric Coward.
Biggest faller. We say this with love, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Faller. Are we saying like someone who's projected high that could drop on draft night, or someone whose media projection has faltered?
Either or. Either or.
I hate saying this because he could be really good because he's tough and he knows how to play and he can shoot. I say Liam McNeely. Struggled a little bit throughout the year. Entering the year, he's kind of like a top 10 caliber player.
Lottery pick lock, according to early mock. Yeah.
On the legendary Montvert team.
Uh-huh.
Was a lethal shooter in high school, had good feel. I think NBA teams are a little worried about the foot speed. When he got downhill and when he attacked closeouts in college, he kind of like threw his body at guys, and he struggled with the injury. UConn relied on him too much, so he got invited to the green room. He's still gonna be a first round pick, but I would say he's someone that some of the teams the worries have accentuated a little bit over the year, and I think when guys start getting picked later in the draft, it's why I love Thiero, right? Because I feel like defense becomes a priority once you're later in the draft, because like you got to prove to like stay on the floor to get the reps to develop. So that's why he's fallen a little bit on my board, because like I worry about the defense.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great answer. I was wondering who he was going to say. I think that's a great answer. I really do. And I sometimes think that that's a blessing in disguise for prospects too. You know what I mean? The expectations drop. Typically, the better teams are drafting later. Not always the case, because you can get multiple picks, but it's sometimes a blessing in disguise. And I agree with the defensive part too. I think that's why Jaden McDaniels has had such a great career. Because when I first learned about Jaden McDaniels, he was a scoring wing, but he had to prove defensively that he can stay on the floor with Minnesota, and it's kind of given him a whole new value at the NBA level. Best shooter in the entire
Tre
class.
Johnson.
Okay.
Tre Johnson. Kon Knueppel could argue. I would say Tre Johnson because the shot difficulty, Pierre, he can shoot I said this on another show. He like changes his release based on if like his left foot's delayed or like lethal shooter. He's best shooter in the class.
Best scorer.
Tre Johnson.
Johnson again. Okay. Best perimeter defender.
Best perimeter defender. Ooh.
People love defense, man.
I think VJ has the tools to be it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he exactly showed it as a freshman at Baylor. I'm going to say Jamir Watkins, Florida State.
Okay. Shout out to Jamir Watkins. Most improved, I guess you kind of already said this, but most improved prospect.
Will Riley.
Shout out to
Cooper.
Will Riley. Oh, okay.
No one wants to hear that, though. That'd be a good clip, though. Cooper Flagg.
Yeah. I like that, man. Cooper Flagg deserves some love, because you have people like me that's like, let's hear about somebody else, but he is so good. He's earned a right to kind of get acknowledged as much as he has been. Prospect most likely to make a playoff impact.
Like outside the top guys?
Yeah. Let's just say like in their rookie year, they made like Quinn Post for the Warriors kind of was solid for them in the playoffs, or
that's a really good question. I'm going to make this difficult on myself. I'm not going to say like the top guys. I'm going to say maybe Rasheer.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Thiero, or like honestly a Watkins, like one of these later picks that like can really defend. I kind of didn't give you an answer there.
No, you said Jamir Watkins. Watkins. I like Jamir Watkins for that. Post lottery pick most likely to reach superstardom. Does not mean they will, but who's a post lottery projected? Because obviously the draft hasn't happened. That you would say, if you had to put money on to reach superstardom, who would that be?
Whew.
I know, very tough question. I don't even have an answer for this my damn self.
I would say it's probably gonna be one of the guys that is in that range, right? So like I don't think he falls, but like if Derik Queen somehow fell to
Mm-hmm.
OKC at 15, that's someone I would be I would not doubt.
Yeah.
If Boyles fell to the right situation,
Mm-hmm.
Conroy Boyles, he's probably the most polarizing player in the draft.
He
I
is.
I like he's been so perplexing to evaluate because he can't really shoot from three yet, but he's just a beast on both ends, knows how to play, can drive, rebound, passes, blocks, steals. Like, he's super versatile. And then I think you throw Will Riley in there just because of the on ball upside. And then, yeah, those are probably the ones I go. I say Derik if he falls, but I don't think he falls outside the lottery.
Last but not least, most likely to be steal of the draft. We'll go guys who are projected 20 and later. One of the tough.
Can I give you two?
Yes, absolutely. You do anything you want on my show.
Walter Clayton Jr.
Ah, yeah.
From Florida. Just, man, tough dude. Played for Patino, won a national championship in Florida, former football player. Honestly, I take back. He's the best shooter in the draft.
Okay.
Him or Tre Johnson or Kon. But just like if he gets in the right situation, he's able to be, play his game as someone that can just light it up. He could be a steal. And then I'll go Danny Wolf from Michigan. 7-footer, playmaker, processes the game at a high level, really rebounds, physical, unique. He could end up going top 20, but he could fall. And then deep names.
We here for the deep names. Give us the deep names, man.
I've given Jameer Watkins a lot of love just because I've recently kind of did the film session, but I think, man, he could be someone that goes, like in the 40s on day two. I think he goes in the 30s, but he could go like 40s day two, and like someone gets hurt, and kind of like a Vince Williams situation. He played with Vince
Yeah.
Williams at VCU, but like someone gets injured and he just plays. Later names I think that are interesting: Javon Small for West Virginia, super
Yes.
feisty, two-way playmaker, gritty, improved a lot throughout college. Tyrese Proctor is someone that is more polarizing than I expected.
Why? Because I feel like his blueprint is like he's an older guy. He showed us early in his basketball career that he can be a decision maker, play with the basketball. So I think it looks like a solid secondary option. But then he turned around his game to be like this sniper. Doesn't that kind of?
I almost view him as a wing. It's funny because he was touted. We talk about these labels these players get. He's touted as like a one and done point guard.
Mm-hmm.
I think he showed a lot of resilience throughout his college career. Develops into a 40% 3-point shooter. I think the only question mark is just like physically. He measured pretty light. He's always been kind of light.
Mm-hmm.
If he can defend, like he's an NBA player without question.
Mm-hmm.
The shooting, the feel, was on the best team in college basketball. That's another one. And then you want like some deep names.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vlad Golden from Michigan played with
Okay.
he's like just big, bruising center, that archetype. I don't want to say he's scarce, but like, you always need, I say this very kindly, like garbage big men, screen, rebound,
My favorite
hustle.
types. Those are my favorite types. I like when a guy can be like I love Kristaps
Yes.
Porzingis, but I love like my favorite center of all time is Tyson Chandler because
Oh man.
he focuses on the small things: screen, block, rebound, run. We don't need you to dribble the ball. I don't need you to catch it and face up. No, I need you to do all of the dirty work and solidify the team. So I love those type of bigs personally.
100%. For me, it's like if you're not one of the premier guys, if we're not running offense through you, I don't want that finesse shit, for lack of a
At
better
all.
term. Like
Yeah.
block some shots, rebound, set some wide screens, make short roll reads, but like don't get cute. And
Mm-hmm.
not transition a little aggressively there, but one that I've struggled with, who's been a riser in the media because of his performance at the combine, because of his late blooming trajectory, former walk on, Maxime Renault, French big man, played at Stanford. I've
Mm-hmm.
struggled a little bit seeing what other people see because I'm like, well, I don't see the defense. So if he's not going to be initiating offense for an NBA team, like he might be limited by the defense. So I'm gonna give you a couple more defenders.
That's who
Elijah.
my producer Christian loves Maxine right now.
Okay, we can argue about it after. I can see it. I haven't been 30s.
I see a little bit of there.
Yeah,
He's solid.
he's solid. I would say in the combine scrimmages, like that was an NBA competition, especially from front court lens. So my questions still stand from the ACC. Barlow. Yeah, the walk-on thing is cat, but I wanted to be positive. Elijah Martin from Florida, national champion, went to the Final Four of FAU. Tough, hard nose, super long, disruptive defender. He could find a way. Micah Peavy for Georgetown.
Mm.
He's someone that grew on me. Watching Sorber, watching Peavy, might have the quickest hands in the draft.
From TCU, right? He transferred from TCU.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know all the names, bro. It's impressive. I don't know how you know all these guys when you cover the NBA.
I'm not college basketball is my first love. So,
bro, there's people who cover the draft and don't know who Michael Peavy is.
that's a damn shame. That's a damn shame.
Another one, I'll go Chaz Lanier, one of my favorite players I've ever interviewed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just super humble. His journey's dope. Role player at North Florida, barely played as a freshman, played a little bit as a sophomore, played a little bit more as a junior. Senior year is one of the most prolific and efficient scorers in college basketball. 50, 40, 90, best player in the Atlantic Sun. Transfers to the SEC and has a better season. You don't see that, right? Best league in the country. He's up there, one of the best shooters in the draft. Just like absolutely lethal. He's definitely top 3, top 4, top 5. If he can defend, he's an NBA player. That's not the most prolific playmaker, but just like a knockdown shooter that's tough and is like a great dude. Awesome journey. And then any other names?
Those are the type of guys I'm excited to watch at Summer League. Like, because I just know he's going to be on somebody's Summer League roster giving somebody hell. It's going to be some one and done guy who was a lottery pick and just kind of just there, maybe going through the motions, and you'll have a guy like Lanier like ready to just run through a wall on some Tennessee Rick Barnes type shit.
I got a really deep sleeper. Haven't seen anyone talk about him. Aaron Scott from St. John's.
Okay.
Started at North Texas. I think he's someone will be a priority two-way. He didn't shoot it well, but being familiar with kind of the Pitino coaching tree, it's really hard to make shots in that system because defensively, you are so engaged and timid and tight. So sometimes when it's time to make a shot, his teams have struggled to make shots just because it's defensive priority. So I think he's a better shooter than the numbers showed. I think if he shot it, you talk about the Matas, like if he shot 40% from 3, I think he's someone who gets drafted in the second round. Didn't shoot it that well, but like 6'7", wing, kind of combo forward. And then let's go Yannick Niederhauser, Penn State.
Yes.
He might be one of the best risers too. Starts at Northern Illinois. Box score numbers aren't that crazy. He's solid, right? We talk about being a garbage big man. Played his role, rebound, block shots, roll, set screens. And I'm not gonna lie, I had some good tip-ins early from the year from like some like real junky NBA scouts, like guys that are sending me names that like might not even be two ways, right? Like, what do you think of this guy? And I'm like, shit, I don't even know who that is. So I got tipped off a little bit earlier when he was at Northern Illinois. So he's on my radar in the Big Ten, and he's just like super explosive, shot blocker, rim runner. Played well. The end of the year, played well at G League Elite Camp, got the call up, was solid in the scrimmages, measured well. His pro day, he like practically broke the backboard. He's so explosive. But he's just someone, we talk about like the Jericho Sims, these guys that kind of pop up late in the draft process, just because like once you get to the final kind of segment of the draft, is like, all right, what are you? What can you do at an NBA level? So if you're a big man that can rebound, set screens, and dunk the ball aggressively as a lob threat and block shots, I mean, you probably get more opportunities than the 6'3" point guard that wants the ball in their hands or stuff like that. But yeah, we covered a lot of names. This is the best show I've been on, man.
One more name. Thank you. I say this to a lot of people, and I mean it when I say it to them, but we definitely got to have you back because I feel like there's a lot to tap into, especially when these guys actually get drafted. I got to throw this name out for my producer, Christian. John Tonje, Wisconsin.
Yep. I was at the Big Ten tournament, and man, he was so productive this year at Wisconsin. He was at Colorado State, I think so, prior. But like burly.
He was at Colorado State? Yes, he
Am I-
was. He was.
That'd be
I'm
crazy if I
sorry.
was wrong.
No, he was. He was. He was. You're 1,000% right.
I
You're
should have said it more
1,000% right.
confident. That's the best thing about the media, and I never wanted to be in the media, so I think it's funny. We talked about this in Chicago, but like sometimes you're just loud and confident. People are like, "Yeah, sure." I'm more so on the like I try to be accurate, but yeah, I'm maybe not all the way in just because like the two guards for Greg Gard historically have been so productive with the way they screen. They give these
Yes.
guys angles to get downhill. It's why I'll give you a good name from next year, sleeper John Blackwell. He's going to be the next
Oh,
guy.
I like John Blackwell. Oh, so he's okay. That makes sense.
He'll be the next guy. So
The
I'm a
guy
little
that
bit
came to my mind
was
was a
Johnny
guy that
Davis.
I was so high on him.
Yeah.
I was so high on him.
Yeah. His
Looked like
career
He looked like a baby Devin Booker.
I mean, he got drafted before Jalen Williams.
Yes, he did. Yep, absolutely did.
Yeah. So you're not the only one that liked him. But yeah, I mean, scored really well this year, slasher, physical. I think defensively he has something to prove at the next level. So we'll see. It's kind of what we talk about. It's like once you get past certain pick, like what are you doing defensively to stay on the floor to merit reps in the NBA? So I gravitate more towards like the Drake Powells, the Hugo Gonzalez, Spanish wing. We haven't talked about like someone that was projected to be a lottery pick, didn't play that
Yep.
much for Real Madrid, struggled as a shooter, but like defensively, he might be on the floor. The Jameer Watkins, like those type guys, I gravitate towards more in the second round because of defensive intensity. But yeah, Tanji had an awesome year.
We've had you for an hour and 40 minutes, and I'm super appreciative. I know you're a busy man, but I wouldn't be me if I didn't leave some type of gem or nugget for the viewers. You've done a good job in these 5 or 6 years being able to carve out a lane for yourself. I see the relationships you've been able to acquire and manage. Like I said, anytime me and you ever communicated, it started off as just like very
We got to
limited
tell that story, bro.
Instagram stuff. I did not know how this man looked. I
The
didn't know if he
Instagram
was.
live with Combo. Shout out Andrew Combo.
Shout out to Combo. I'm gonna have him on the show next.
I
think I'm
I
gonna have
gotta
him on
give
the
you a
show.
shout out. You know, I saw recently there was a coach at Baylor when I posted Davion Mitchell on the page. It was really when we were just Instagram page, and I remember they sent me a DM that like, yo, our coach just shouted you out in the scout in the film room saying that like this dude got a league him post last time we played him. Like we gotta stop him. That moment and you and Combo speaking so positive about me. Like there might not be a league him without you. I'm being serious because it gave me fuel because I respected you from afar. And just like for you to go out on a limb and like on your platform speak so positively about me, like when you're trying to build something, we're gonna kind of get into this. That's why I thought it'd be good to bring that up. Talking about like how you carve out your lane. It's like, you know, no matter how talented you are or how hard you work, like you're always gonna have that voice in your head, like, what if this doesn't work out? Or you know what I mean? And when you have people you respect that put their reputation on the line for you, it's really valuable fuel. Like anything from like numbers or money or followers or likes, that shit doesn't mean anything when you get down to like the nitty gritty of like why to keep going when you're starting something. So I gotta say thank you to you, man, because like I'll never forget that moment. I don't remember how I was on the Instagram live. I think I just like randomly clicked on it, and I'm on this Instagram live, and you a Combo to start going back and forth like, yo, shout out League. Who the hell is League him? Why do they know all the players? And then Combo's like, yeah, like I DM the dude. Like I don't think he likes being talked about. He's kind of like a intel operative. Like he don't show his face. He's a ghost. And then Pierre's like, yo, I've DM'd him too.
Yeah, I was very curious.
Oh man. But to answer the full question, you're pretty much saying like how to carve your lane or whatever.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people in the space, and I see it all the time. And I know how big it is, right? Like, number one, I'm a fan of the game. I'm always going to be a fan of the game. The followers, the platform, the branding behind it. It's very honorable. But I was doing this for free. I was doing this when I had 12 followers, when nobody knew who the hell I was, because it's a passion of mine. But I see a lot of people with that. But for whatever reason, in the draft space, you get on social media and there is like this
arrogance.
That's the word. It's like an arrogance that people speak with. And I see it so much. Like there was even a young guy who was like he's like a spreadsheet guy who I started following. And though he's a
Calculator
spreadsheet
warrior.
guy,
Yeah.
I kind of like some of the things he said. I don't agree with everything he says. I think he had like Ace Bailey like 17th, right? But I also love that. I love to not agree with everything a person is saying. I love when a person, you had Jakucionis 21 on your draft board. I love shit like that because we all can't get on these platforms and say the same thing. We just can't. You know what I mean? But we also can't talk out of our ass to be different and not have a genuine opinion. But when I'm trying to get in a draft space and just trying to learn, I see so much talking down, nose in the air. You're not allowed to have an opinion. It's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And again, I'm me. I'm good. I'm just watching how people interact with each other. It's not even necessarily what people are saying to me, but I'll see somebody post a mock board or they'll have an intriguing thought or a evaluation, and you'll see a reaction where these people are like talking. Then I'm like, how the fuck do you think you're going to end up in this space if that's how you're communicating to people? And I even seen like my guy Corey Tuller, but he's the one who I really see going front line for the draft community. There was a interaction I seen months ago where like a guy like Jonathan Givony, who's been a part of the draft world for years now, he said something and somebody from the draft space like mocked him. And Corey Tuller was like, bro, he's just giving his opinion. What is it that deep where we gotta like, where is this coming from? Where we can't agree to disagree or allow people to have the space to evaluate in their own right. You've been a guy who've never been a part of that. And I've seen what the relationship side of it has been able to do to you. When we talk off camera, you're able to dip into a bag of reliable information, and it all is from relationships. You're very big on relationships. In Chicago at the combine, you pulled up on me. We didn't even have time to do this, but you still made an effort to say, I'm gonna take 15 minutes and we'll come formally meet, we'll chop it up. And we was able to have some good conversations. And I think it's important. So I want you to speak on that and how it's been able to help you catapult to where you are. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, the way you conduct yourself has allowed you to align with certain people outside of myself to be where you are now. When I first seen your post and your page versus what it is now, two completely different worlds.
Appreciate that. Yeah, they say, judge me. One of the big quotes I got, when you start something, it's like, it's always hard to start. Like everyone sucks when they start. Like, judge me by my progress. So I appreciate you saying that. Like you want to be judged by your progress, get reps, but some great bars there. This is another one we could do a really entertaining podcast shit.
This is why we have to do the part 2 so we can dive an hour into this.
We could pay-per-view this one. It'd be entertaining. But I think I'm fortunate. I've got some good perspective. I've worked in college basketball for 3 amazing head coaches that were empowering. And then, I've been fortunate to have relationships with, some of my best friends work in the NBA. My mentors have been in the basketball. So like I'm all I am is like a foundation of like a product of all the people that poured into me. So I think I have some good perspective of like how things actually go. But to the relationship piece, it's like whether it's scouting or coaching or player development, media, like come on now. Most valuable currency is relationships, not money. It's relationships. And it's not relationships, me coming over to, maybe I pull up on you and the guys at the hotel and I post an Instagram picture on League Him. Be like, yo, just chopped it with my guy Pierre. No, it's like we had developed a relationship. We were in the same city. I'm at Wintrust across the street. I'm like, shit, I don't make sure I want to talk to Pierre. Like, you know what I mean? It's not. So I think if you have real relationships, real genuine relationships, you hold yourself to a certain standard of just like being a good person. Like it's not that difficult. And then to the James Naismith, I say that with Keandre, who runs Hoop Intellect.
Shout out to my guy Keandre.
A lot of shout outs on here, keeping it
another guy I gotta find a way to get on this show. It's so many of y'all. I have to get Keandre on this show.
Good dude. I talk to him all the time. Like the keyboard warriors, the spreadsheet junkies, the calculator boys, the arrogant MFers. But like if people in a front office, like a GM, is open-minded to their lowest intern or their scout or their college director, and they're debating or arguing all year respectfully about prospects, this isn't a science. It's kind of like an
Mhm.
art form. So I think in scouting, you better keep an open mind. So I think it's kind of disheartening to see so many young guys on Twitter be arrogant or feel like they know it all. When in reality, if you want to be in this business, and I'm not saying I've done anything, right? I'm just speaking like in general, people that are way more successful than me, you better be open minded and you better be someone people want to talk to, because you have to have, we talk about the growth mindset with players.
Mhm.
You got to have that with everything, man. So you can't be arrogant. You have to be humble and eager to learn. Like I talk about, doing a big board, bro. The draft's next week. I might put out another board, and I've been
Yeah.
watching and it's not, maybe it's overthinking, but it's like you get, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you get more information, you learn more. Maybe I do another interview and I see something about a player, like you can always learn. So that's kind of the long-winded answer. But building league him, man, I had zero desire to work in the media. I had zero desire to show my face, put my name on the work. It's just kind of happened, to be honest. Like I just followed my intuition. Ended up getting real. It's funny. Like one of my best friends ended up working in the NBA front office as I kind of was building league him, and
Yeah.
I think maybe that relationship helped me kind of gravitate towards. When I started, it was more just like under the radar college players, and now it's shifted into more of like a prospect to professional approach. But yeah, man, it hasn't been scripted. I gotta get more strategic now. But now we talked about that. But yeah, just be a good person, man. Like no matter what you're trying to do, if you're trying to grow something or meet new people or get in rooms you're not in, be a good person. Cherish your relationships and like be a good person. It's not that. It's pretty easy, man.
Yeah, it's right on the money. Like I've told the story on here a few times, but that's actually how Christian became a producer of the show. He started working for the company, and he was so on point with his college basketball that I gravitated towards him. And I looked at him as like, this is a guy that can keep me on my toes. On the numbers on the board show, I'm the college guy, but I don't have anybody that keeps me sharp. Iron sharpens iron. So now I have this new young guy who is super tapped in. He's telling me shit that I forgot, I didn't see. He'll tell me something about a player, and I'm like, wait, fuck, why do I know that name? And it then keeps me sharp. And so it's like, I love the mentality of feeling like, you can continue to learn, because that's like the best part about this sport is that there's never enough to not know. And I love having people around me that can bring me back to that level of being humble enough to know, oh shit, I got to get back in the lab. It's just like being an NBA player. You know what I mean? You go all NBA and you start to get distracted with the attention that comes all NBA, and you'll have somebody who is playing for a contract come humble you. And then it's like, oh shit, I got to get my shit back together. So I appreciate that mindset, that philosophy. And I thank you for coming on the platform, giving us all of the information that you have, taking out the time. This is almost 2 hours. You left some gems for our younger viewers who want to get into the space. They asked me a bunch of questions. I don't have all of the answers. I play into certain things because it's the persona that I kind of have on the show, and people, I like to rile the people up. But I don't know it all. As much as people might say Mr. Know It All and whatever, and I argue everything, but in real life, I enjoy learning, and I appreciate guys like yourself, Keandre, the Combos, Corey Tullibas, Raphael Barlow's, who put the work in, man. Like the draft space to me, is very cutthroat, and I have a certain appreciation for you guys because, like, y'all go do the real treacherous work. It's easy. Like I was telling Raphael Barlow, because when he came on the show, he said I was being like modest and humble, but I was being honest in the sense where, like, when you guys come into the room or the realm, I kind of sit back. I'm just a media guy. Y'all are the ones that go travel to watch the games. You saw Tre Johnson in person and could talk about the look he has in his eyes or how bothered Egor was when he struggled. All I'm doing is watching the game on ESPN, or I'm watching the league him mid-season highlight reel, and I'm trying to take as much information as I can, go on Synergy and see some things. But y'all are the ones that are going in the trenches that mean something. And I think that's the tough job. It's easy for me to see what you're writing about and formulate my opinion off of your opinion. You get what I'm saying? So I just got the utmost respect for y'all in the space that are out there on that front line, because it's an incredible job, but at times it can be unrewarding, right? You put in all of these hours in a week to formulate opinions, and then you get somebody on Twitter who just goes to Bartovic and look at formulas and says, nah, yeah, and it's like, damn, if it was that easy, you know what I mean? I would just be doing that way. So again, I just want to give you your flowers, let you know how much I appreciate your work, and thank you for coming on the show. And I am very serious. We got to do a part 2 in the near future after the draft, man. Anything else you want to say to the people? Let them know where they can find you, what else you got planned, and anything else you want to tell the folks before we wrap up.
Yeah, the respect is mutual. Happy to be on the show. Happy to chop it up. I think you probably discount yourself a little bit with the knowledge. I mean, you put some work in to understand these players. You say it's, grueling. Maybe it's not as rewarding. I think for me, the reason why I've been able to put, a lot of time into this and why it doesn't feel like work, traveling to a game, driving to a game, getting back late, stuff like that, losing sleep, is because I am so excited to see these players eclipse their dream.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such a unique job where you're tracking players that are trying to achieve something that man, you wanted to be in the NBA probably, right? Everyone
Absolutely
wants to play professional sports. Bro, if you go in a second grade classroom, I hope they haven't hit these kids' confidence down too much at second, third grade.
Right.
I want to be the quarterback. I want to be a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a running back. I want to be point guard for the Celtics. Which is awesome. These players are really doing it. They're the ones doing the work. So the ability to, ever since I left the college space and I'm able to be in the gyms and interview the players and do these film sessions or get to know a player like Cedric Coward or Rasheer Fleming on their journey from being unheralded to being on ESPN talking about their journey, it's super rewarding because you feel a little bit invested in. You talk about having. We talk with Christian in Chicago about having my guys in the draft, and I told you guys they're all my guys,
right?
Bro, I want all the players to succeed. So that's why it's difficult sometimes when you have to do the big board stuff where it's oh, you have this player hired, do you hate him? I'm not saying you asked that, but people be
for sure
vigilant and aggressive on Twitter or whatever. It's dude, Jalen Wells went 37th.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Williams just had one of the more impressive performances I think I've seen in the playoffs. Went 14th. Aaron Wiggins went 55th.
Shea went 13th or 14th, right?
Shea went, I think, 12th. Tyrese went 12th. Okay.
Yep.
Tyrese got traded. Shea got traded. Andrew Nembhard went 31st. What's my man's name? TJ McConnell was undrafted.
Yes.
Alex Caruso, undrafted. iHeart, second round pick. Come on now. You're telling me the 30
Siakam.
Yeah, 21. Siakam, 20-something pick. The only guys in that, even Miles Turner wasn't a top 10 pick. You're telling me the 30 best teams, the 30 best organizations in the world are printing money to learn everything about these players, and they're not getting 100% right, yet someone on Twitter is supposed to feel like they know it all?
Right.
Scouting's humbling, man. You got to be willing to be wrong and learn and not be arrogant. So I think I've enjoyed the process of growth, and it's been very fulfilling to grow it out. I feel like I still haven't really done anything yet. I'm excited to see what in 5 more years, 10 years. They say it takes 10 years, right? You guys have been doing it forever. I'm sure people see you on ESPN. They're I want to talk on ESPN. I know basketball. Come on now. They weren't there when y'all were sacrificing
in the basement.
Yeah. Producing it yourselves and you're marketing it yourselves. And yeah, so I'm not with all the arrogance or people. I think people just don't have the perspective of what it takes to build something. But that's why I love what you do. And I love what you guys are doing to enjoy with your show. But you're talking way kindly about me. I got nothing to plug, man. I guess just look up League Him on we got leaguehim.com and then Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. The film sessions are really good, I'd say. People want to learn more about a player. Those are really fun. We did some with some of the hidden gems of the draft, Cedric or Rasheer, Derik Queen, Nique Clifford, who you guys learned about on the show. But have some 2 or 3 more coming out this week. Those are fun to watch. But yeah, I'm interested to see where everyone goes. Draft's a week away. I guess this is coming out Monday. Draft's this week. 2-day draft. And guess what? There's gonna be some guys picked on that second day that are good NBA players, and that's why you
Absolutely.
always got to keep learning, keep watching and learning. And appreciate you having me on the show.
No, man, I appreciate you. This is one of my favorite ones we've done. I can't wait to do the second part of it. Hey, appreciate y'all for tuning in. This is our draft special. You got one of the best in the business giving you everything you need to know. He was super gracious with his time. We touched on a lot more prospects than I ever would have imagined. Good conversation. Left some gems for y'all that are trying to get into space. As always, this is Tee It Up. That's Jacob Myers, a.k.a. League Him. I'm Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. We will catch y'all next time. We out. Peace.